Hello and welcome to the program. I am therein. Question: can we live longer? I bet we would love to do just that. However, I feel like asking you yet another question. If you have ever questioned that you might be cheating yourself. Cheating myself, you may ask? There are three things, says Walter M. Germain. Simple, if you have them, but can be very complex if they are missing. Though truly wonderful it may sound, those three things which may be simple for you to achieve once you know how. But what are they? They are indeed health, happiness, and longevity. Yes, and in fact, many people have spoken about that. So we are not the only ones. Just one moment, please. Did you mean that we can live longer if we want to? When people usually answer this with a big yes. So we can live longer without becoming senile. Are you sure? Even though you may have increased your age and advanced in years, you can surely be healthier and not the other way around. And by being healthier, you will be happier. And is it a fact? The truth of the matter is that by being happier, you will be healthier. It is a twice perfect process, don't you say? One achievement brings the other. Unfortunately, both are accomplished in the identical ways. What would you say when I declared that we all might be living just day by day without really living and simply existing as we all do? However, living truly means being knowledgeable of all the things that are about you, within you, and concerning you. Alas, many may feel that they have no time to bother with these things. And you, my friend, might also be one of them. If you are following this philosophy, I'll say that you are cheating yourself. So, just stop and think about the major roles which your feelings play in your daily reactions to situations. Has it ever occurred to you that the three processes of your nervous system, which we call thoughts, words, and deeds, are greatly influenced by the daily emotional reactions you have? Perhaps we should reward the question and ask how greatly your emotions influence your normal processes of being. You may or may not be aware of or realize most of the time that there are basic urges for survival to dominate the unconscious forces, keeping you functioning as a human being. Throughout the times of man's evolution, the superconscious level of the mind was dominated by three primary instincts of survival. They were self-preservation, reproduction, and protection of the human offspring. It is these type of instincts which may cause you to seek pleasures and avoid pain. Interestingly, you may not be able to realize it consciously. So it seems that you seek security and shy away from insecurity. That is understandable, for we all seem to do the same thing. By simply enhancing your sense of security, you obviously feel good towards living, health, happiness, and, yes, longevity. But those things also arouse sense of insecurity, and they can induce anxiety and feelings of resentment as well. When you worry about something, you literally become sick. Certainly you are familiar with the saying, worrying yourself sick. And that is what actually happens. Exactly the same thing happens when resentment grows deeply within one's own self, and the whole system is affected with the upset. And the situation brings on extremely unhealthy conditions, even immature death. How often we have found that men in their prime have died of heart failure, and such conditions are born of resentment about something or other issues in their lives. Question mark. Worrying and resentment must never be allowed to grow within one's own self. It's almost like signing your own death certificate before your early demise. Worry, you have, indeed, shortens many years of your life, just surely as you are growing older prematurely by the day. But aging daily does not need to indicate that the days remaining are fewer now. It should mean that by increasing your happiness each day, you are truly assuring and reassuring yourself more and more days to be alive. Think about that. The fact, by observation alone, is that you are cheating yourself of the things in life you want. Consider how many of your friends or acquaintances already are suffering from the degenerative diseases that are becoming earmarks of our current age these days. Negative emotional thinking is the one reason so many persons die of heart disease at their peak years, or afflicted by high blood pressure. I will try to add diabetes or other degenerative diseases also. This kind of thinking deprives people of the natural birthright of good health. It is the prime cause in shortening the lives of many of human beings. However, would you say that to live a healthier and longer life is so simple and much happier? Let us say that the heavens work wonders through the laws and rules governing the nature, in fact, the human nature. That really is the secret. It was there all the time for you to know. If you did not know it before, which I doubt very much, if you had not sought it, here it is. There is not any price to pay, unless you consider happiness for yourself as a price. It's a good price. It is not a difficult secret to understand. It's not a puzzle. It is very simple, but possessing all the depths of simplicity. However, before one can correct one's faults, one must face them. Agreed? In short, that is the basic law of nature. And in fact, it's the law of human nature. Now we need to look into ourselves a little more intently and see how and why negative attitudes or feelings are destroying human beings. We need to discover how and why these negativisms disrupt the harmonious functioning of the human organism, and therefore causing mental and physical ill. From birth to death, and no matter how long life might be, the human organism does undergo constant changes. Look at them with an open mind and observe that the human has achieved his present stage of evolution from that jelly-like cell that scientists called the amoeba. The amoeba is so called because it is the word for change in ancient Greek. This cell is capable of changing itself in many ways. As one can see, that animate life from the very beginning had the automatic property of effecting changes in itself. These changes have been truly necessary for protection of life against the threatening existence. The ability to change is the secret spark with which heavens endowed human life. Without this secret spark, without this adaptiveness to all forms of environment and to all sorts of problems, the human form of existence would hardly have survived. This spark for change is still a part of the human being. That is part of the evolution in man. Adaptive function of the secret spark is controlled not by the conscious level of the mind, but by the superconscious. Human being is consciously aware that this function exists and is consciously aware of what it has accomplished so far, but is not consciously in control of the power. His conscious level can only transmit to the superconscious the need for the adaptive function to be brought into play. The superconscious relays to the various organs, nerves, and blood cells the need for ways and means to meet new situations. The superconscious assists the organs of the body in improvising ways to meet these problems and challenges. The adaptive function operates by means of chemical messengers, or hormones if you like, which are secreted directly into the bloodstream by the various endocrine glands. A Dr. Hans Selye, who was the director of the Institute of Experimental Medicine and Surgery at the University of Montreal, identifies this adaptive function as the body's unified Department of Defense. Sounds good. The body's defensive setup knows when to give battle to dangerous germ life and when to ignore the harmless and helpful microscopic life within your own system. This network of alarm and protection knows when to protect you from cold and exhaustion, from high-pressure work and emotional tension. But if any of these enemies reach the proportions of unbalance with the defensive mechanism, your body and your mind succumb to stress, and the system reacts so violently that it injures itself. This line of defense against attack by internal enemies is the very answer to the question right at the beginning. The means by which you can live longer is this adaptive function of the body. This is the key to life and bliss. Scientific study has shown that life is not limited to the proverbial 70 years. We should be able to live to the century mark and more. Even the Holy Scriptures make reference to such lifespans, but misinterpretation and misinformation has led us to believe that these were exceptional and or very unusual. The exceptionality of these long lives is only that those who lived them had obviously found the clue to the secret spark and had used it to achieve life endless. By knowing how the body inflicts itself with degenerative diseases of adaptation, as Dr. Selye calls them, you can learn the secret of extending the span of your life to beyond the limits of a century. Man's state, like his present mode of living, was not developed in the course of a single lifetime. The slow transition from the savage state of life to the present modern state of civilization accounts for man's highly developed external environment and his relative internal decline. In the so-called uncivilized state, man, the savage creature, maintained a well-balanced coordination of his mental instincts and physical faculties, compatible with his wild environment. This creature was concerned solely with the task of obtaining food for his existence and with living from day to day in competition with the many other creatures around him that were intent on destroying him. His main objective in life was, obviously, as you can guess, survival. To cope successfully with the wildness or primitiveness or the primitive state of his surroundings, his physical development reached a high state of perfection and coordination. Man's environment during this savage state of his development endowed him with instinctive qualities equal to the animal life about him, with which he had to compete in his quest for existence was to be successful. During this era, or savage era, of his evolution, man developed instinctively functioning of his physical powers by means of superconscious direction. Because of the regular routine of his daily activities, the savage man, or primitive man, required no higher mental processes than the superconscious guidance of his highly developed instincts and emotions. To illustrate how instincts and emotions served to meet the needs of a primitive man, let us consider briefly the psychophysical action that took place when he was faced with danger, and it was necessary to escape or fight. The first flight or fight reaction of human nature. When he was faced with the adversity too powerful to overcome, instinctive urge for survival within the superconscious caused the emotional impulse of fear to be transmitted to the pituitary gland, the one attached to the lower base of the brain, as you know. Hormones from the pituitary caused excitation of the adrenal glands, the glands of combat, as they are sometimes called, as you know, as one of which is attached to each kidney. Hormones from the adrenal glands caused the liver to discharge its sugar into the bloodstream for use by the muscles. The lungs reacted with rapid, deep breathing. This quickened the supply of oxygen and the elevation of carbon dioxide from the system. The heartbeat was more rapid and strong. The blood pressure thus increased. Draw blood to the muscles of the legs to enable our primitive man to escape from the danger that threatened him by the simple process of running away. On the other hand, when there was need to fight for dear life, the same instinctive urge for survival caused the emotion of anger to arouse identical physical action. The same bellowing of the lungs, acceleration of the heartbeat, increased blood pressure, and so on. But the energy from the blood sugar, instead of going to the lower extremities, was directed by the superconscious to the muscles of the arms, so that fight rather than flight was made possible. You know from actual experience that you can run much faster when danger threatens and when you are scared. You know likewise from, again, personal experience how anger will intensify your competitive attitudes. This instinctive mechanism was of a great value to man's primitive ancestors. But man of today is considered civilized. He does not leap upon his enemy and battle ferociously in ordinary social contacts, nor does he run for miles to escape danger. If man did these things today, there would be vastly fewer deaths from heart disease, as well as a much smaller percentage of the degenerative diseases. The stresses you undergo by not reacting as your primitive ancestors did make for wear and tear of the body and the mind for worse than the wear of the physical action of running or fighting. The primitive instincts, however, that were developed in the human brain through man's daily competition with wild animals and fellow man through countless generations of the uncivilized existence, are still active in the superconscious. Frequently, modern man is caused by these instincts to use his emotions destructively, simply because he does not always find suitable outlets available for the release of the emergency energy. Fear and anger are instinctive emotions that were designed by creative intelligence, or God, if you like, for the preservation of the species. It is indeed a sad commentary in this age of so-called enlightenment that more and more persons are literally destroying themselves in body, mind, and soul with a very primary emotional forces that were designed for the purposeful perpetuation of the human race. This trend towards retrogression is a very serious one, but it can be checked. And simply, all that is necessary is better understanding of the self in the real world and compliance with the laws governing the human nature. Why then do you worry? I know. You worry because you fear that someone or something has threatened your security in some ways. This fear may conceivably not to be a conscious one. It may very well be an unconscious fear, but nevertheless, it causes worry. And if you work up resentment at the situation, anger is aroused. These are negativisms. These negative feelings and other forms of negative emotion, and there are so many that it would be impossible to list them all in this small frame of time, are the offshoots of your primary emotions of fear and anger. If you are to allow your anger and any of their offshoots to become chronic, they will eventually unbalance your body. The result will be an unfailing culmination in some degenerative disease. When negative emotions become, in a word, chronic, the adrenal glands are almost constantly pouring adrenaline into the bloodstream. The muscles become tense. Energy is wasted. The heart overworked. The liver strained in an effort to supply the excess of sugar that is called for, and all this in response is to the primordial urge for survival. But paradoxically, this urge for survival under those negative circumstances result in functional disorders of the body and the mind. The excesses of sugar frequently cause diabetes. The overworking of the liver leads to many complications. The overtraining of the heart brings general deterioration and frequently premature death. We see, therefore, that fear is the most destructive of all the emotions. And as it is the chief emotional component of worry, fear is active in the daily living of nearly all of us at some time or other. You probably have not thought of worry as being fear. The simple fact is, however, that if you were not afraid, you would not worry, would you? This does, to some extent, serve a useful purpose. It excites the adrenal glands to stimulate mind and body to meet emergency situations, which are necessary to the preservation of the organism's equilibrium and stability. But despite this usefulness, you must not be led into believing that prolonged worry will therefore not affect your body. You must know the effects of that continual or lengthy worry has upon you. You certainly would not voluntarily tolerate any physical state that depletes and exhausts your vitality. Yet many persons do allow this mental state to exist. That does this very thing. That is precisely what happens when you pit worry to dominate your mind. If you are an average person, you're prone to rationalize your own weaknesses. It is a human feeling. You probably are thinking at this minute that a state of prolonged worry and consequent breakdown cannot happen to you. But I tell you, after all, your thoughts are probably running, I don't worry. At least not enough to injure myself. Let a celebrated professor of psychiatry answer you in his book, Emotional Maturity. If you can find it, please get one. J.B. Saul says, persons indeed realize how hostile they are, and our ignorance does not help us in attacking the problem of this inner force, which menaces humanity today, as it has throughout history. For men treat moralistically, heatedly, vindictively, and emotional force which they repress and do not wish to see in its full intensity within themselves, rather than facing it frankly, objectively, and scientifically, like a disease or any other force of nature. It is obvious that so intricate, fundamental, and universal reaction as this quick mobilization for flight or fight must play a fateful role in human life and human affairs. Many are the frustrations and irritations of everyday life, even in peacetime. Hence, there are a few people who do not endure constant frustration, constant irritation, and hence constant anger. As Thoreau once said, the mass of men lead lives in so quiet desperation. The irritation may be physical or psychological, internal or external, real or imagined. It may arise from decayed tooth, or falling hair, or a miscarriage of justice from feelings of inadequacy due to prolonged and excessive dependence on parents or people, to an unhappy home life, or to years of mistreatment during childhood, from loss of a button or a toy, or loss of a friend, from living under a leaky roof, from an uneasy conscience, or from exposure to battle conditions. Whatever the irritation, man fights it by trying to attack and destroy the source, all by escaping, and his feelings are anger and anxiety. A great many people pride themselves on having the good sense not to worry, at least not about unessential things. Perhaps you do not worry too much during your waking hours. Most of us are much too busy earning our livelihoods to worry while we work. But how many of us lie down to sleep at night without our worries, creeping into the forefront of our minds? Question mark. Like a camel, most of us retire for the night with our packs still on our backs. Too many become slaves of night worry. You fall into the habit of thinking over the affairs of the day after you have retired for the night. The thinking habit at bedtime is a wonderful habit to cultivate, but it must be used for thoughts of pleasant and cheerful things. This thinking period must be positive and constructive. You must think about your desires and yearnings about ways to constructively gain them. But this is something we will deal with at greater length in a later time. We will come back to it. The first proposition, as spoken of before, of the working hypotheses discussed before makes it clear that the superconscious is constantly amenable to control by suggestion. And the fifth proposition points out that is superconscious has absolute control of the points out that the functions and conditions of the body. Therefore, if you fall asleep, entertaining positive thoughts, cheerful and constructive ideas, your mind and body will be the benefactors of your thinking during your sleeping hours. And your sleep, you will find, will always be sound and refreshing. That is the ideal. But if you lie down to sleep with your mind troubled by the trials, pettiness, and stresses of your work, a day of existence, have you any reason to wonder why you awake in the morning feeling tired and listless? You have seen how worry will sap vitality and destroy health. So it is that taking your troubles with you to bed at night will surely make you grow old prematurely. Believe me, a troubled sleep is not one that will benefit you. And troubled, untroubled, peaceful, and sound sleep is one in which the body's recuperate powers have a chance to work. It is such sleep which can be made amenable to suggestion of added rebuilding and regeneration of the body's tissues and cells. Going to sleep in a cheerful mood will always mean awaiting or waking up refreshed and vigorous, simply because your body has had a chance to replenish itself, to grow and to build. Going to sleep in an ugly mood or in a state of depression or worry will only cause you to forfeit the natural benefit of sleep. In addition, you will harm your health, shorten your life, destroy your happiness, and harm your health. Quite conceivably, bring to reality all disagreeable things about which you thought at bedtime. Worry is a thief in the night. It robs you of your natural heritage of health, happiness, and longevity. The problem you must solve is, how do I stop worrying? The answer is given in 5 simple words. They are these. Cultivate a well-balanced mind. How? Simply by replacing every negative thought with a positive one. Do you remember the popular song of not so many years ago? Accentuate the positive. The positive must dominate, the negative must be quelled. Your mental process that produces the phenomenon we call thinking is caused by the interaction of the feeling attitudes and your reasoning conclusions. But your feelings must not dominate your reason, for feelings can be negative, and domination under the circumstances is the making of your downfall. Believe it. Learn to test the reasonableness of each thought or contemplated act before you indulge in it. Learn to ask yourself, is this right or wrong? Constant testing consciously will lead you to constant testing unconsciously, so that eventually your mind will tell you right or wrong without a moment's hesitation. In the beginning, when you test consciously, if your sense of reason tells you that you are wrong to make black appear to be white, as it were, instantly dismiss the entire idea from your mind by deliberately and purposely thinking about something else. The simple reason this technique is such a practical one is that your conscious level cannot think of more than one thing at a time. It is therefore quiet, easy to dismiss any bad or undesirable thought from consciousness by simply thinking about something else, something different. In due time and in due course, the process will become automatic. You will instantly dismiss those thoughts or actions that are classified as negative. You will start living a positive life and will reap the benefits of good living. The value of this technique depends upon the diligence and persistence with which you practice this mental exercise. You must learn to do it once this day and twice tomorrow, as advised. The day after tomorrow, you must do it 3 times and continue to increase it by 1 time each day, so that your positive thinking will become automatic. You will find after practice that right thinking will be a conditioned reflex of your mind. It will be a habit, resulting in a noticeable, rapid mental and physical improvement. So, you now have a concrete example of how you can use the great gift for one of the many powers it was intended. By this practical and simple method, you will be able to train your own superconscious to be a good servant rather than an unconsciously bad one. The voluntary functions of your body can be brought under conscious control by the simple technique if you persevere. But you must truly persevere. It is certainly not sufficient to remember one day and forget on others, and then try to catch up with what you carelessly missed by forgetting. Conscious perseverance is pursued is of the same necessity as constant practice is for an athletic pastime or mental exercise, if perfection is to be achieved. Before you go on, reread, if you have taken notes, of the fundamental principles of this therapeutic phenomenon. 1. Superconscious exercises. Complete control over the functions and conditions of the body. 2. The superconscious is amenable to control by suggestion of the conscious mind. 3. These two propositions of the working hypotheses lead then to the unchallenged conclusion that the functions and conditions of the body can be controlled by suggestions of the conscious mind. Now, it will take a little practice before you find, to your surprise, how quickly and completely you can change your mental habits so that you will automatically review the happenings of each day with constructive mental attitudes before you fall asleep each night. You will find how wonderfully serene, calm, refreshed, and completely rejuvenated you will be when you awake each morning. You will find how easy it will be to start the day with cheerfulness for all and malice towards none. On the other hand, if you go to bed in a sour mood, ill-humored, or permitting your conscious mind to dwell on negative thoughts, your superconscious will continue to entertain disturbing thoughts while you sleep. This will be a constant strain on your nervous system and cause malfunctioning of your bodily organs. It must become a fixed rule for you to set your mental house in good order upon retiring each night. Within short days, you will become much healthier and happier than you ever were. Believe it, it will be. By properly preparing your mind for sleep, you hold the power of building for yourself a healthy body and a happier and longer life. Each night at bedtime, you must visualize as vividly as possible constructive mental pictures of what you would like to be or what you would like to possess or what you would like to have happened to you. It will amaze you when you discover how the creative forces of the superconscious can be put to work in refashioning your mental, physical, spiritual, and material life. But you must train this genie of your mind in positive, emotional thinking while you sleep. If you allow negative suggestions to weave themselves into the fabric of life's reality, you will be doing the very thing you seek to avoid, giving the mind the fears and worries so many people have caused, mostly by imaginary things. Edward Van Duyn of Rochester, New York, has a short recipe for a long life. Don't worry. Isn't that a wonderful plan to follow? And isn't it a simple one once you know how? Mr. Van Duyn should know what he is talking about. When he disclosed this recipe for longevity not too long ago, he was 106 years old. Rochester psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Schuster described Mr. Van Dien as amazingly alert. There is no senility here, no breakdown of the mental processes due to unnecessary worry and fear. This man, at the age of 106, recorded an intelligence quotient of 126 and IQ, reading well into the superior category. His alert brain is up to the minute on current affairs in all fields. He is active in his lodge and other organizations and loves, believe it or not, to spend evenings playing cards with younger cronies. He drinks beer frequently and smokes 6 cigars a day. This is not exceptional phenomenon. This can be the rule for everyone. Dr. Schuster has offered the keys of Mr. Van Dien as evidence to support the scientific theory that there is not necessarily a direct relationship between age and breakdown of intellectual functions. Dr. William Brady, whose syndicated newspaper column is widely read, has given us this sound advice. You should endeavor to learn more about life, physical life, biology, physiology, growth, development, maturity, and degeneration. Physical degeneration. With an intelligent view of these vital processes, your attitude towards life in all these phases will become less squeamish, more philosophical, and conducive to peace of mind. Knowledge is the antidote to fear. This is probably what Dr. P. Merrill of St. Barnabas Hospital in New York City meant when he said that it might be possible for men to live to be 115 years old if chronic diseases were to be wiped out. Someday, he said, it may be possible to go to the deathbed of a man of 65 and tell him, there has been a mistake. You have another 50 years to live. This miracle will come to pass only after chronic disease, the nation's #1 health problem, has been put to rout. A Mr. Jacques Romano in New York claims that people could live to be 120 years old if they would learn to think sanely and live wisely. Jacques is apparently well over a mature age, and his mental and physical condition is like that of a perfectly healthy person of 35. Though, through persistent practice and conscious control of the emotional life, this amazing man has proved that even the voluntary functions of the human body can be consciously controlled. The mental faculty of stopping the pulse, stopping the blood circulation in parts in my body, stopping and starting digestion, raising and lowering the blood pressure, has come with practice, he has said. It has nothing to do with religious beliefs or soul development. Good pointers. Learn to understand with humility instead of superiority. Hate is a confession of fear and lack of confidence. Avoid those who spread propaganda of hate, regardless of what religion they profess or what position they hold. A truly believer in God does not degrade the teachings of the Master by stooping to hate, bigotry, or bloodshed. True development rises from man's mental attitudes. Self-discipline, self-control, and self-mastery are the basic principles of self-development. Only when you have attained these can you experience the exaltation, or what a great master meant by saying, "Peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum." As for my health, he writes, my mind does not permit my body to recognize the proverbial 70, with neither worry, envy, hate, nor malice towards anyone. My physical structure is beyond disorder. How wonderful. Such men as Mr. Van Dien and Mr. Romano have learned how to meet life's stresses with perfect tranquility. The formula they use is an old one, but it has never failed. And this formula will work also for you, as with for all, if only you conform to the laws governing the human nature. This formula recognizes that the primary emotions of fear and rage, biological roots from which destructive emotional reactions stem. The antithesis of these destructive reactions is the feeling of love. Modern mystic Joseph Sadoni has made this pertinent statement. We started our scientific investigation of God with Pope's famous warning ringing in our ears. Know then thyself. Presume not God to scan. The proper study of mankind is man. But we soon found an answer to it. Seek thou within, seek not for God above. The proper name for man in man is love. No less an authority than the late Dr. Alexis Carrel pointed out the basic similarity of the rules of mental hygiene and the moral law as expounded by Christ. When one of the Pharisees asked, Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus said to him, Thou shalt love thy Lord, thy God, with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is, like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and prophets. If you wish to witness the greatest of all miracles, the operation in your own life of the great law that governs human nature, just use the formula of love. This formula is the most effective means of obtaining perfect tranquility, the basis of good health, happiness, and longevity. As of this very moment, start loving your fellow man, every one of them. Pull out love of your heart to your spouse, your children, your relatives, your neighbors, your associates, your friends. Above all, this outpouring of love, this feeling attitude that will bring you the perfection of tranquility, must be lavished. And those persons about whom up to this minute you care about least. And don't feel that your love must be confined only to your fellow man. You can and must love everything that heavens, God, has created. The trees, the flowers, the birds, everything. All that is about you. You must strive to increase your love each and every day. We all know that aging is a disease. The technique of bestowing love upon everyone and everything will slow down this process of aging. It will bring you health. It will bring you happiness. It will bring you a long and fruitful life. It has worked for others, and it will work for you. It is there for you to try. Learn to love, and you will live. But today, not tomorrow, is the day to start. Fighting the age disease. Love is the all-curing medicine that conquers the dreaded disease known as old age. Age is a relative thing. The number of years you have lived is only an arithmetical symbol. Happiness you have spread and have thus yourself had during that time is the true determinant of your youth. Learn to use the formula of love. At least once each night before you fall asleep. And again, at least once each day, preferably in the morning before the strain of the day's work is upon you. Repeat either or both of the following thoughts. The proper name for God in man is love. And love thy Lord, thy God, with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The best active use of the formula of love itself comes at any time during a period of stress or strain in any day. At such times, you must repeat this thought, inserting in the blank space, if you like, the word or phrase signifying that which has caused the moment of grief. I love ... as I do myself. You can create a different formula following the same. And so we will end this program here, and we will meet again by the next episode. Keep smiling and be happy. Thank you.